upcoming tech consulting firm with revenue of 100 US dollars plus has been thinking of growing to the next level, doubling its income. BHAG, as we call it, a big, hairy, audacious goal. During my engagement with this client, I have had these intense conversations. Fundamentally, they would like to promote customer centricity enterprise-wide and bring in a culture of service excellence all through the enterprise. So that is their objective. In the next 5 years, they need to double their income. So in these intense conversations that I've had with senior leadership and also mid-level leadership across the US and the Asia Pacific region, there was one theme that emerged very distinctly. And the theme was this, that the team members' diffidence to ask and face uncomfortable questions. So that was the theme that emerged. At one level, difficult questions had to be asked of customers, both internal and external. Such an attitude towards the so-called uncomfortable questions led to a situation where several issues were swept under the carpet. Without going into details, let me share with you that such difficult situations later resurrected and took on a life of their own. And then it becomes a Frankenstein monster. The senior leader was so concerned that instead of focusing resources and management attention on what is important, on opportunity assessment as we would call it, they were spending more resources and management attention on crisis management and firefighting. Here is a classic case of focusing on quadrant 3 of the time management matrix, the urgent but not critical. Note the statement that is attributed to the then US President, Eisenhower. What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. She went on to add that some of the team members have a negative disposition to receiving feedback and found it challenging to face uncomfortable questions both from internal and external customers. So rather than extracting value from awkward situations, we tend to gloss over and acquiesce to the status quo. A preference for the status quo makes us view the present as good to better and great, and look at any change with skepticism, suspicion, and at times painted as undesirable. Now, at the root cause of this whole problem is our attitude towards discomfort. So discomfort to face the uncomfortable. Uncomfortable questions and situations bring in uneasiness, makes us distressed, and makes some of us feel very mortified. It would be much easier to choose avoidance as a strategy rather than face the situation. The safe option, the strategy to face this, is to kill the message, or at best to banish the messenger to a foreign shore far away where I cannot create any trouble. But the other question that we have is too much comfort, is it too bad? Because the other side of discomfort is comfort. But then is too much of comfort, is it too bad? Comfort, we all know, is a pleasant feeling in reaction to the environment that we face. And discomfort is the lack of a relaxed feeling. If you ponder about our own ancestors, we look at our own parents or grandparents, what if they were alive? They would have looked at today's world with a lot of disbelief. Everything we need and more is available at the press of the button. You name it, you have it. It's available with us all the time. There's this book, Indistractable. In this book, Meir writes that humans are wired to escape pain and seek comfort. This trait has pushed us to overcome and survive extreme living conditions. This trait is also the driver of human progress and innovation. We are seeking comfort. I was looking at this journal called Applied Ergonomics. There was this editorial in the special issue, and the authors mentioned that a search of Science Direct, Science Direct, it is available in our database. A search of Science Direct for 30 years, yielded one word which was repeated over 100,000 times, and you can guess the word. It is discomfort. So much of research has happened over the years on how to address this question of discomfort. For instance, there was this paper that discusses a little pain in the neck problem. How a headrest, can either cause comfort or can bring in discomfort. Or for instance, how do drivers in a truck take a pit stop, and how can they sleep? Can they sleep well? So you see a galaxy of uncomfortable questions have been asked and situations addressed, fundamentally to bring in more and more comfort. Now the question that we have when we are discussing about discomfort and comfort, have you ever faced discomfort in your lives?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure all of us have. I don't think there is one person in this room who has not faced any discomfort. And so have I. And I would like to share with you two little stories. At the age of 36, I decided to do a mid-career shift to academics. Some of you know the story. Leaving behind 14 years of hands-on experience in diverse industries like the automotive industry, the financial services, retailing, and direct selling, I decided to get into academics. Unfortunately, my industry colleagues looked at me and they couldn't believe that I wanted to cross the bridge. Why on earth would you want to start preaching when you are doing a decent job of practicing and taking home a fair share of vitamin N? You know what I mean, vitamin N, money. So they looked at me and said, "Are you okay? Is something wrong with you?" One of them taunted me. He said, "Now that I am an academic, I have the license to preach from the rooftops. What I could not bring myself to practice. I could only guffaw and laugh it away." My shift from industry to academics felt like moving from a frying pan into the fire. This is early days, 1988. The first year of teaching was an unmitigated disaster. I'm being very honest with you. After that, I considered the option of going back to do the practicing rather than preaching. Students with many uncomfortable questions to ask in the classroom did not make it very easy for me. But then I started asking myself, why do students ask uncomfortable questions in the first place? Did the kids in the classroom want to make me uncomfortable? I can see some of you nodding. Okay. But on the other hand, I know for sure that they only wanted to learn in the true spirit of inquiry. Pertinent curiosity and exploration would lead them to grow and progress. It is up to me, the teacher, to process this fact and help them in their journey. But that realization I didn't have when I started. Storytelling was my forte. From industry, you come back to academics, you think storytelling is a great thing. So a lot of storytelling was indeed entertaining for a moment, but only by connecting practice to theory and concepts, the long jump from industry to academics could be pulled off. I didn't realize at that time. Students in their feedback were hard-hitting. Comments like, "Why did you hire him? Why pay him a salary?" haunted me for a long time. Some severe reflection yielded some results. The lack of preparation was so evident. The years of practice without understanding the philosophy, answering the very important why questions had left me rusted and out of date. My approach to the profession, I would say the vocation of teaching, was more like preaching rather than learning. The day I realized that I did not have all the answers, and then I said, why the heck should I have all the answers? And that was the day of awakening, the coming of age experience that I had. Finding the answers became less important than asking the right questions. Solutions can always be found if only the right questions can be posed. In the spirit of co-creation, then the teacher and the student become seekers and partners in the crime. And in today's world of distributed learning, can anyone lay monopoly claim to wisdom? Over the years, listening to the customer, the voice of the customer in some sense, the student feedback, both formal and informal, silent and vocal, have helped me in my journey to become a better teacher. I am often fond of saying to myself, one lifetime is not enough to learn all that I need to learn in marketing. And so I would vouch for any other subject in this earth. One thing led to another, and it was time for my second makeover. Going back to school in a formal setting. In 2002, I enrolled in the full-time PhD program at IIM Lucknow. PhD scholars had to share the first year coursework with the MBA batch. So this was my picture there, struggling. You can see the struggle on my face. I was the oldest in a batch of 240 students with an average age of 23. My 39 years of age at that time looked vintage in comparison. Quite ancient, you would say. While I looked forward to be called an uncle, my batchmates had other ideas. The slam book records me as the big daddy of the 2004 batch of IIM. At first, it was a little offending to be called a daddy, when you would expect it to be called uncle. But then, okay, I think you appreciate, daddy more than an uncle. All right. So, these were the thoughts that were running in my mind. Words like entropy, chaos, disorder ran through my mind. My non-engineering background and the decade-long hiatus from student life, and with the relative grading system, the deficit credit points, I can see the excitement on your face, gave me the scares. Life was in a mess, an absolute mess, a muddle of sorts. It was left to my then teenage daughter to raise the bar for me. But first, she asked me if I had a timetable. I retorted that the academic PGP office had already published one, with classes scheduled from 8:30 in the morning, going up late into the night, and stretched for some 10 plus weeks thereafter. It was already there. I contemplated, dropping out and going back to teaching, which I thought was a much easier job to do, that I didn't have to work so hard. But my wife would have none of it. She's here somewhere. Colleagues at the school where I taught had given me a grand and enthusiastic farewell, for sure knowing that I would not return for the next 2 years. My employer hadn't given me a 2-year study leave with half pay in return for a 4-year service bond. I could not go back. That was definitely not an option. I thought of giving then my daughter's idea a fair chance. So now I had a timetable made for myself. All tasks were prioritized. The schedule even had some time for slack, to watch the squirrels at play, to watch them scratching their backs, to listen to the merry chirping of the birds, and to see them having a bath. I built in that into my system, into my timetable, slack. And also time to feed them occasionally. Time to look at the stars and start dreaming. But importantly, I prominently published, displayed my timetable for all to see. You know what I mean? So that I hold myself true to the timetable, and I was seeking support from the peers in the hostels. And it started showing results, and I emerged with my confidence intact. The several students on academic probation at TEDxIIMTrichy and elsewhere I have mentored have vouchsafed the efficacy of this Pokayoka. Pokayoka, okay? The timetable as a fail-safing tool. So here I am. This was 2013, our first convocation. Mr. Birla was our chief guest. And 2014, and leading the academic procession. And the Make a Difference that was launched in 2014, that was the first time we brought it into our curriculum. So this is where I am today, okay? So here I am, though preaching what I practiced. Okay, remember, one of my friends said that you will start preaching now because you can't practice, but thankfully I have shared with you an idea that I practiced myself. There was this journalist, Easter, in his book, The Comfort Crisis. He says that our quest for comfort works against us in such a largely comfortable world. He further says that in the process, we tend to miss out on profound human experiences. My story, my friends, demonstrates that at times the best option is to take the road less traveled. When we push ourselves out of our comfort zones to expand our zone of tolerance, a new world of experience unfolds. Here is this quote from our own Thiruvalluvar. I hope some of you can read that. Okay? So what does it say? It says that if you can face discomfort, right? If you can face discomfort, you will be much respected in life. So today, lifelong learning has become more critical than lifelong employment. With several potential career shifts strewn in our path, may we turn into better versions of ourselves, even if they are discomforting. And then we have the confidence to ask ourselves, "O discomfort, where is thy sting? Shall we now call you instead as a painful pleasure?" Thank you so much.